If you miss an opportunity, don't fill your eyes with your tears. It will hide another better opportunity in front of you. Take it easy, make it easy.
Hi guys, and welcome back. In this section, we're going to look at browser automation. Browser automation is really similar to web scraping, but instead of requesting the page's content using the requests module, we're actually going to launch the Chrome browser. We're going to open the page and we're going to use Chrome to navigate through the page and get the contents using Chrome. That has a couple of benefits. The first one is that Chrome can execute JavaScript. The code from the last section would find some problems if there is JavaScript on the page, just because when you get the page content with the requests module, it doesn't run the JavaScript code that has to be run on a browser or another JavaScript engine. That means that if there was JavaScript code, the page wouldn't work as expected. Using Chrome fixes that problem, but of course you do end up with a much slower running program. Now you have to actually open the Chrome browser, you have to actually navigate through the page using the mouse, pretending to be a user with the Chrome browser, and so on. So it is much slower and more cumbersome. It takes up a lot more resources in your computer. So this is not the solution to all problems. You should still use what we learned in the last section where possible. But if it's not possible, because the page has JavaScript, or because you want to pretend to be an actual user instead of a robot, then you can use Chrome and what we'll be learning in this section to do that. So thanks for joining me in this section. I'll see you in the next video.
Don't let something current ruin the future or the past.
Hi guys, and welcome back. In this section, we're going to have a starter code, which is the code from the last section, the web scraping code. Let's go over it real quick, just in case you haven't seen it in a while. We've got the entry point to our code, app.py, and that makes a request to quotes.toscrape.com, which is just a quotes website that contains some quotes by famous people, and gives us the HTML content of the page. That HTML content is passed on to our quotes page class. What that does is it creates a beautiful soup object which will allow us to traverse the HTML that we've received and find things inside the HTML, which is what we do down here in the quotes property. We go into that beautiful soup object and we find elements using the select method matching this selector here. The selector is just any div on the page that has the class quote. If you haven't seen the last section, I would recommend going through that first, just because it contains a bunch of explanations that you will need for this section as well. Now, after finding all the divs with a class of quote, it passes them into a quote parser object that we also made. And this one stores the parent, which is basically the container of the quote, and then has a few properties as well: content, author, and tags. The content property once again gets a locator from the quote locators file in this case, and then finds an element inside this quote with that locator. Same for author and tags. So basically what is going to happen is here we're going to get a bunch of quote parsers, one for each div, and then each of these objects we can use to get the content, author, and tags of that quote. Then at the end we print out the page quotes. So you can actually run this just by right-clicking and running app.py, and it's going to launch and it's going to give us all these quotes that we've got. So that has actually launched the page, well, not launched the page, but is gone to the page and got the HTML content using the requests module. And once we've had the HTML content, it's returned it to us and we've performed our searches. There is a problem, of course, which is that if we use JavaScript, then this won't work. Or if we want to navigate any other page that uses JavaScript, this won't work. I'll show you an example. Here I've launched another quotes.toscrape.com instance, but this one is /search.aspx. This is a slightly different page that uses JavaScript, so we can use this to try out our JavaScript scraping. Notice that if we were to use the requests module to get the HTML content of this page, we would get what the inspector gives us at this point in time. So we've got a couple of drop-downs and a search button that is now partially hidden. I will move that a bit. There you go, my search button down there. Now that has a problem because the author drop-down that you can see here has a bunch of authors inside it. You can see them if you click on it, and you can see it in the HTML. But the tag drop-down does not have any elements. It is only when you select an author that the tags change for tags that are available for this author. So basically, you're going to be able to only select tags that match that author or things that the author said. Because that change happens after the page has loaded, it means that our requests code cannot deal with something like this for two reasons. The first one is that the content of the page is changing using JavaScript. That is the only way to change page content. And when we load a page using requests, we cannot execute JavaScript. So that is a problem. The second problem is we cannot use the requests module to interact with a dropdown inside a page. The requests module allows us to get the HTML content, so we would be able to see there is a dropdown, but we won't be able to click on it and make a change. So the requests code is not going to allow us to use this page. Then if you click the search button, a further JavaScript change happens that shows you a quote matching the results. What we have to do is we have to actually launch the Chrome browser, navigate to this page, and modify these dropdowns ourselves, then click the search button, and finally extract the result. So that's what we're going to be doing in this section, as I mentioned earlier on. We've seen the code as it is now, and that code as it is now is just for this page here, which doesn't use JavaScript. For our new page, we're going to be doing everything in this section. So I'll see you in the next video.
If I start to listen to these people and start to let them decide how I should behave and what I should do, then this is not my life, it's theirs. They're controlling my life. I'm not going to let give anybody the power to control my life.
Hi guys, and welcome back. In this video, we're going to be downloading the chromedriver. One of these browser drivers allow us to talk to the browser programmatically, and you can find them for Chrome, Firefox, Internet Explorer, and so on. The browser makers make these drivers precisely so that we can automate the browser using programming languages. And the primary reason for that is not to scrape content, but to actually test websites, running them on a browser. Automated software testing, if you will. That's not what we're going to be doing in this section, but nonetheless, that is the primary purpose of making these drivers. To download the Chrome driver, we're going to go over to chromedriver.chromium.org, and you have to make sure you have Chrome installed, of course, since the Chrome driver is going to talk to your Chrome version. Make sure that Chrome is up to date, and then download the latest stable release. When you go here, you'll see a very nice looking website that allows you to download Chrome driver. Just select your version. If you're using Linux, download Linux 64, Mac, Mac 64, and Windows Win32. I'm going to download Mac 64, and that downloads a zip file, same for all operating systems. That zip file, when you open it, will contain just one thing, which is a Chrome driver executable. On Linux and Mac, it'll be called Chrome driver. On Windows, it'll be called chromedriver.exe. All you have to do is unzip it, remove it from this zip, put it somewhere you can remember the path of, and that's it. You're going to need to remember the path because we need to tell Python where the Chrome driver is located when you want to use it. So just put it somewhere that you know where it is, remember the path, and let's move on to the next video where we're going to be using the Chrome driver to launch Chrome. I'll see you there.
I believe strongly that just don't go through life, grow through life. And I'm sure there is always room for improvement and things will get better and better and better.
Hi guys, and welcome back. In this video, we're going to be looking at using the Chrome driver with our project instead of the requests module. We're not going to change what the project does. We're not going to look at the new JavaScript page yet. We're just going to use Chrome in here so that we get accustomed to using it, and then we will move on to the new page. The first thing we have to do is to get the chromedriver. So we're going to do from Selenium import WebDriver. We're no longer going to need requests because the WebDriver is going to be doing the requesting. So we no longer need that. Next, we're going to actually launch Chrome. So we're going to say something like Chrome equals webdriver.chrome. And here we're going to pass in the executable path. And that's going to be the path to where your chromedriver program is. In my case, it's in USR local bin chromedriver. But if you've put it somewhere else, then make sure that you put the correct path there. And if you're on Windows, make sure that you put the .exe there if it's on the file name. That will actually launch Chrome, and it will give you this Chrome variable that you can use to interact with it. So now, instead of making this request here to get the HTML content, we're going to say chrome.get, and then we're going to go to http://quotes.toscrape.com. Now, instead of passing the page content to our quotes page object, we're actually going to pass Chrome, because this Chrome instance is running the page. So it has access to everything inside the page. We no longer need to limit ourselves to only getting the HTML content. We can actually pass the Chrome object to the quotes page and use that Chrome object inside this other object. For example, if we wanted to click around on things or stuff like that, we can do that as long as we have this Chrome object. If we pass in only the HTML content, we wouldn't be able to click around in it because it would just be a string. Now notice that we've got some red lines here because we do have to install Selenium. So just go over to your PyCharm preferences and go to the project interpreter, click the plus icon and install Selenium. Don't need anything else, just Selenium is okay. And once it's installed, those red lines will go away. All right, that's it installed. So we can close and press OK. And the red lines go away, so that's all good. Now we go over to the quotes page, because obviously this expects the HTML content to be passed to it. We need to change it so that it expects now the Chrome instance. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove this dependency from Beautiful Soup, because we're no longer going to need that. We're going to use Chrome and Selenium themselves to traverse the tree, so we don't need Beautiful Soup. And here we're going to say self.browser is browser. And we're going to pass that in as the parameter. Now, this browser here we can use to find things within the page. Selenium comes with that. So as soon as you have your browser, you can do self.browser.find elements by CSS selector. And then you pass in your selector there, which is this one here. Okay. Now, it's quite common when you have a long string like this one to reformat it so that it is a little bit more readable, and we're going to do it like this. Okay, this is just a way to format this. If you are using a formatter like Black, which I recommend, then it will do this for you. But when you've got a longer list comprehension like that, it's normal to divide it into two, the thing that you want to put in the list and then your loop. And then, of course, anything else can also be in there. Okay, now that we have our quotes, and again, this is just going to do the exact same thing, only instead of using Beautiful Soup, we're using the browser. We do have to go over to the quote parser and make these changes as well. Instead of select one, what we're going to have to do is, again, find element by CSS selector. Notice that in the quotes page, we did find elements by CSS selector. Here we only want one, so it is find element by CSS selector. Instead of .string, it is .text if you're using Selenium. So yeah, we just copy that into here and into here, but we don't want the text, and we also want multiple elements. So it's going to be, once again, find elements by CSS selector. The thing that we're interacting with now when we use self.parent or when we get these tags is no longer a Beautiful Soup element because we're not using Beautiful Soup. These things like self.parent are all Selenium objects. So they have different methods in them and they have different properties in them, but overall the logic is the same. you're searching for them, and then you're getting the text out. It's just the names that have changed a little bit. If we go back to app.py and we run it, you'll see that Chrome gets launched, and we load the page, and then we get our quotes down here. Just as we did in the previous application, but now we do have Chrome here. And it tells you that Chrome is being controlled by automated test software. Remember what I said in the first video of this section, that the chromedriver is for testing websites? That's why it tells you that it's being controlled by automated test software. Even though we're doing nothing to do with testing, but nonetheless, that's why Selenium exists. All right, so that's how you use the Chrome WebDriver. You just ask it where you want to go, and then we're going to be passing it over to our page and our parsers, and we're going to be using the methods that are defined inside Selenium to find elements and extract their contents. Now, because we have actual Selenium objects and the actual browser, we can click on things, for example, on dropdowns. So we're going to start looking into how to do that in the next videos as we move over to the new page that uses JavaScript. I'll see you in the next video.
Don't post everything you think. Don't. Just don't.
Hi guys, welcome back. In this video, we're going to be finding which locators we need for our new page. First of all, let's load up quotes.toscript.com/search.aspx and go over and right-click on the first dropdown. This first dropdown is one we're going to need in order to be able to interact with it. Notice that we don't care for the label, we just care about the select. And here we've got a select, and the ID is author. So just keep note of that and put it in your project. Or just wait for a second and I'll do that as well. The tag select is another select with ID of tag. Once you've got IDs on your page, that's what you should be using to find elements, because the ID is supposed to be unique, so as long as the page was designed correctly, IDs should be unique. So there you have the select ID author and select ID tag. And finally, you have the button, which is an input, type submit, and the name is submit_button. We can use the name in a CSS selector, so we are going to do input with name submit button, and that's what we're going to be using to search. Now, we also need to keep track of what the quote is, so that we can retrieve it after. And we've got a div class quote, and then inside it we've got a span with class of content, that's the content of the quote, a span with class of author, that's the author of the quote, and a span with class of tag, which that's the tag that we searched for. It's not really necessary since we already know what we're going to search for when we select it from the dropdown. So really, we're just going to care about content and author. Let's go back to PyCharm and note these down. Back in PyCharm, I'm going to open the quote locators and the quotes page locators, and we're going to add a couple of things here. The author dropdown is going to be a select with tag of author. The tag dropdown is going to be a select with ID of tag. And the search button is going to be an input, which I'm actually going to use single quote, an input with name equal submit_button. This is how you can search by attributes in CSS, by the way, with the square brackets, and inside it you can say the attribute name and then equal and the attribute value. So if you wanted to search by value, for example, it would be value equal whatever, but here we're searching by name, so it is name equal whatever. Then in the quote locators, we're going to go here and we're just going to make a couple of small changes because the content locator is now span.content. The author locator is span.author, and the tag locator is span.tag. Okay, we're not going to use this one, so yeah, we'll just put it there anyway, just in case. But for now, this is all we need in order to access our new elements in the new page. Another thing that you may want to do is, of course, go to app.py and change this to /search.aspx. If you run this now, you'll see that nothing very interesting happens. You load the page, and then nothing gets printed out because our locators are now for this new page, but our code here, like getting the quotes and stuff, is for the old page. But you can see that there are no quotes in this page to be shown, so nothing happens. We're going to have to change it so that we actually interact with the new page here instead of just treating it like the old page. Let's do that in the next video. I'll see you there.
Don't worry about people who are trolling you for your looks. One day, a big Hollywood hero will call you sexy Tamil friend.
Hi guys and welcome back. In this video we're going to be interacting with our first dropdown. And in Selenium they're called selects. Let's go over to our quotes page and add a couple of imports. The first one is going to be just from the typing module. And the second one is from Selenium WebDriver Support UI. And we're going to import select. The typing one is just so that we can do this in there, which was missing. And then we're going to add another property, which is for the author dropdown. And this is going to return a select object from Selenium. And what it's going to do is it's going to first of all find it. So self.browser.find element by CSS selector, and this is the quotes page locators dot author dropdown. And then we're just going to return a select of that element. What that does in Selenium terms is it takes whatever arbitrary or generic Selenium element you've got and it tries to put it inside a select wrapper. And what that does is it gives that element some methods that we can use to interact with a select. Now you better hope that the element you're passing into this is a dropdown. If it's not, you're going to have some problems. So now that we have the element there, that lets us create something like select author. And that takes in an author name, which is going to be a string. And that is going to do self.author dropdown, which is this property here, dot select by visible text. This is one of these methods that you get when you make a select. And select by visible text is going to be author name. What that does in Selenium terms is it opens the dropdown, sees what's there, and then selects the one that matches this string if it's there. So that is how we're going to select an author from the dropdown. Let's go over to app.py and modify this code so that it actually does that. So let's, first of all, ask the user what author they want. So enter the author you'd like quotes from. And then we're going to do page.selectAuthor with that author. All right, so making sure that we've got everything there, and it seems like we do. Go ahead and run this. And Chrome will open first, because that's that line 5 there. Then we get asked what author we'd like, so we're going to say something like Bob Marley, just because his name is quite short. And there we have our first bug. You can see that the error says attribute error, list object has no attribute tag name. That suggests that we've tried to do something on an object, but that thing was a list instead of whatever we were expecting. So something comes to mind immediately when something like this happens, and that is that we used the wrong method, and indeed we did. For the author dropdown, we said self.browser.find elements by CSS selector. You want find element because there's only going to be one, and you want just a single element so that you can make a select out of it. You don't want multiple elements or a list of one element because then it will be very confused. Okay, let's run app.py again. Notice that this launches a completely new Chrome instance when you do that, so you can end up with a bunch of different Chromes. There you have it. And Bob Marley has been selected in our dropdown. If you read the error messages, you can try to glean something about Selenium's internal workings, but it can be tricky. If you do have any problems, ask away in the course Q&A or in the Slack channel. We'll be more than happy to help. Just make sure you give us your code and, as much information as you can so that we can help you better. That's how you interact with one select or one dropdown. I'm sure you can do the same for the tag name, but we're going to do that in the next video. I'll see you there.
I am convinced that education is the tool that will unlock every kid's talents, and potentials. And I'm convinced that education is the best deal for everyone. I mean, when we invest in kids' potentials and talents, we are securing a safer world.
Hi guys, welcome back. In this video, we're going to look at selecting a tag. We're going to go about it the opposite way than we've been going about things until now. We're going to start off at app.py and then we're going to move over to the quotes page. And this way of developing can be really good as well. So I'm just going to try it out so that you can see what I mean by it, and maybe you can do this on your own projects. And what I mean is we're going to first decide what we want to do, and then we're going to go over to our quotes page and implement how that's done. So what we want to achieve is to select an author. Then we want to look at what tags are available. We want to tell the user, look, you've got these tags, which one do you want? And then we're going to select a tag from those. So we can do something like tags equal something like page.getAvailable tags. And notice that this doesn't exist yet, but this is just me using something that I know doesn't exist yet because I'm trying to decide how I want to interact with the page object so that I can then go and implement these methods. Then we can say something like select one of these tags, and we're gonna put a list there with format that.join tags. So this tells us a little bit about getAvailable tags. GetAvailable tags is going to give us a list of strings, and then we're going to join those strings using this pipe character, which is going to essentially give us something like love/music and anything else, and so on. This is what that join is going to do, and it's going to print it out in this string inside this square brackets. And then we're going to ask the user for their selected tag. We're going to say input, enter your tag. And finally, we're going to do page.select tag. And we're going to pass in the selected tag there. So what this means is that we've now decided how we want to use the quotes page class. If we are happy with this implementation, we can go and actually write these methods in the class. So let's go and do that. We're going to go over to quotes page, and it's going to be very similar to what we have here. All we're going to do is add another dropdown, very much like this one, that says tags dropdown, and it's going to find by tag dropdown there, and it's just the same thing as before. And as well as select author, we're going to have getAvailable tags, which returns a list of strings as we agreed earlier, and that is going to return option.text.strip for option in self.tags dropdown .options. And once you have a select, you can access all the options inside it, and then you can do option.text for the actual contents of the option. .strip is going to remove any white space at the end and at the start of an option so that it doesn't have any extraneous white space when you print it out. And then we also need select tag, which takes in a tag name, which is a string, and then just does self.tags dropdown .select by visible text tag name. Too many brackets there. There you go. So these are the methods that we wanted to use from our app.py, and like I said earlier, this is just going the other way around for developing. Instead of trying to get the whole program in your head and implement all the methods and then go and try to use them, you can decide what you want to achieve first and then go and implement the methods you need in order to do that. I actually do this quite often, and you may like this way of going about things as well. Let's go and run this, and Chrome will appear first. Then we can select Bob Marley. And then you get here, select one of these tags, which are all the tags in the dropdown. Notice that in order to get these tags, the browser has already selected Bob Marley from the dropdown. So then we can enter our tag. And by the way, this here is the first element of the dropdown, the one that you can see selected right now. And then you've got love, music, and friendship. So these are the other elements in the dropdown. You could get rid of this one if you really wanted to, but to be honest, I think this is a problem with the website more so than anything else. This is a thing that you can select, so I think it makes sense to leave it in there. And then we're going to select love, for example. And there you have that selected in the dropdown. And the next step is, of course, to press the search button and get the quote information out. Alright, that's everything for this video. Just wanted to show you this alternative approach and, of course, implement the tag selection in our program. We can move on to the next video where we're going to do some searching. I'll see you there.
I still see every opportunity that I have as like a little crack in the wall, and it's almost as if like the scratch represents every opportunity. Therefore, the success on the other side of the scratch is the light. Scratching hard, clawing, digging, it's that mentality to really take advantage of every opportunity I have.
Hi guys, and welcome back. In this video, we're going to be pressing that search button. So let's start with app.py. We're going to do page.search_button.click. That's how you interact with something in Selenium. And in this case, it's going to be that search button that doesn't exist on the quotes page yet. And then we're going to do print page.quotes. So let's go over to the quotes page and add our search button. I'm just going to add it down here underneath the tags dropdown. It's going to be a property search button. And what this is going to do is return self.browser.find element by CSS selector, and that is going to be the quote page locators.search button. And that's it. You've got the button. You can click on it now. We can run app.py. Bob Marley. We're going to type love, and there you have your quote. And if you go back to the site, you'll see that this has actually worked. The button has been clicked, and this is how you interact with websites using Selenium. As you can see, it's not all that complicated. You have to have a page model that reflects what the page contains and what it looks like, so that you can then very easily just say, okay, I want to click this button, I want to select this thing, and so on. It is the app.py, though, that is starting to get a little bit more complicated, just because it contains all the logic about how we're going to interact with the page. We're going to ask what author you want, and then we're going to select an author, then we're going to get the available tags, then we're going to print them, and then we're going to ask for which one you want, and so on and so forth. We can make that a bit simpler by encapsulating some of this logic into the page as well. Remember that this page here doesn't only have to contain page elements. It can also contain page actions, like selecting an author, getting available tags, or potentially performing the whole search flow. Let's go and do that in the next video. I'll see you there.
Everybody has a purpose in life. Everybody has a destiny. And the knowledge of that destiny enables one to fulfill it. And life begins when a person realizes his purpose in life. Very few people know how to go about finding what's the best purpose in their life that they should try to fulfill.
Hi guys, and welcome back. In this video, we're going to be encapsulating our logic into our page so that the app.py becomes much simpler and we can very easily reproduce a search. I'm going to start off at app.py again by asking the user what author they want and what tag they want. Now, I'm no longer going to be showing the user what tags there are available because I want to run through the search very quickly. So this is just an alternative way of doing things. Instead of getting the available tags and printing that, we're going to just delete that, we're going to delete that, we're going to delete that, and we're left with the central part of the logic, which is select an author, select a tag, and click the search button. So we're going to cut that, and we're going to instead do page.search for quotes, author, and tag, or selected tag, rather. I'm just going to rename it to tag. Now, we're also going to print this because we want to be as simple as possible. So what this is going to do is something slightly different. It's no longer saying, hey, I want to do this with the page. Now this is saying, I want to use this page to search for quotes, and I don't actually care what happens to the page itself. This is a slightly different way of going about interacting with a page using Selenium, but it's a perfectly valid way and something I'd encourage you to do. If you can encapsulate actions within the page, it's going to make using the page very easy. So going over to the quotes page, now down here, we're going to add our method. And that is going to be search for quotes. Takes in an author name, which is a string, and a tag name, which is a string, and is going to return a list of quote parser. Okay, the first thing it's going to do is going to do select author name. So we're just going to call this method here. Then it's going to try to do something. And what it's going to try to do is select a tag. And that's going to be the tag name. But it's possible that it won't find it. No such element exception. And this one here has to be imported, by the way, from Selenium. So import Selenium. There you go. So you want to do from Selenium common exceptions, import no such element exception. If it can't find it, that means that this tag didn't exist for this author. So we're going to raise an invalid tag for author error. And finally, if that doesn't happen, it's going to do self.search button, click, and then return self.quotes. Now we do need to have this invalid tag for author error, which is going to be a value error subclass, and it's not going to do anything. Okay, capital F, there you go. So, went a bit quickly there, but all this is doing is selecting an author, then selecting a tag, then clicking the button, and then returning quotes. And notice that all this is doing is it's using other methods and properties that we have previously defined and used in app.py. This is a very natural progression for your applications. First, you define your application as doing something, and then you encapsulate that application logic into a method or a function. Here, putting it inside this page makes sense because it modifies and interacts with the page itself. By allowing the page to give us everything you need in order to search and find quotes, it means that your apps become much simpler, and also the page can still work as normal using the other methods if you want. We've added some error handling with this try except, just in case that this tag name isn't valid, because we're no longer telling the user what tags are valid. So doing that will raise an error if the tag doesn't exist. Let's go over to app.py and run it, and now you'll see that we've done another improvement. We ask for the author and the tag first, and then we do the slow thing, which is launching Chrome. So we're going to do Bob Marley and music. And now here comes Chrome, and everything happens instantly. It's no waiting for us to type. So there you have your program, and there you have your quote. Because this application only ever prints out one quote for this tag, you get a list of one element, but if there were more, you would get a list of all quotes. This is how we can encapsulate some logic into our page, and this is really helpful to simplify your applications. Thanks for joining me in this video, and I'll see you in the next one.
Listen to me. I need you to get this. Everybody ain't your friend. Just because they standing next to you doesn't mean they want the best for you. Just because they smile in your face doesn't mean they loyal behind your back. Understand, real situations expose fake people.
Hi and welcome back. In this video, we're going to be adding a little bit of error handling to our app, just so we can deal with any eventualities that may happen. We're going to come here and we're going to surround everything in here by a try except block. Okay, and the first exception is going to be invalid tag for author error as E, and it's just going to print the error message. And then we're going to have a more generic exception, and we're going to say something like an unknown error occurred please try again. So this double except, I'm not sure if we've looked at it before, but what happens is if an exception is raised in this block here, and it is an invalid tag for author error, then it's going to run this. If it's not that, then it is going to run this because exception is the base class for every exception. But you can have many of these, and then they get less and less specific. We also do need to import our error there, of course. So now if we run our app and we say we want Bob Marley and then we want something like magic, what you'll get is Chrome will launch, Bob Marley will be selected, and then you'll get your message here. Author Bob Marley does not have any question. Any question? Why question? I'm not sure why I typed question there. Does not have any quotes. Not sure why I decided to type question there, but that's no problem. We fixed it, and we've added our error handling there as well. That's it for this video. Thank you for joining me. I'll see you in the next one.
Everything happens for a reason. Whatever it is, good or bad, maybe it's not according to our own plans, but it happens for a reason. And all that happens because God wants you to become the best version of you.
Hi guys, and welcome back. In this video, we're quickly going to talk about two different types of wait. You've got explicit waits and implicit waits. We're going to be using these when JavaScript is taking longer to run than our code. And that would mean that our code would be faster than the JavaScript, and that can cause a series of issues. For example, if the JavaScript is responsible for changing an element on the page, and your code tries to access that element before the JavaScript runs, then you're going to have a problem because the element's not going to be there. That sort of stuff is the occasions when you want to use waits. An explicit wait, as you can see here, is very straightforward. You import the time module from Python. That's a built-in. You don't need to install it. And you do time.sleep, and that's going to sleep for 5 seconds. You can use this in Selenium. You can use it anywhere else in your Python code. And it can be quite helpful, but it's also a bit limited because if the element appears after 1 second, then you've got 4 seconds of waste. And if the element appears after 10 seconds, then this is not enough. And sometimes JavaScript takes longer to run, other times it takes less time to run, so it's not ideal to do something like this. The other option for explicit waits is to do something like this. And I know the code looks a bit complicated, we've not seen it before, but don't worry too much. To do an explicit wait, you need to import 3 things. You need to import by, you need to import expected conditions, and WebDriver wait. Then what you do is you use WebDriver wait and you give it the browser that you want to use and how long to wait up to. So this code here is going to wait up to 10 seconds unless the condition that we say happens. So when the condition happens, the wait ends. So this is essentially a wait until, but it can end early. The condition is expected conditions dot presence of element located. And this is a way of telling Selenium to wait until an element exists in the page. The element doesn't have to be visible, it just has to be there in the page. So these 2 lines of code are telling the browser to wait up to 10 seconds unless an element appears on the page. And the element that has to appear on the page is the final line here, line 7, which is this tuple. A tuple of selector type and selector. Up till now, we've been using CSS selectors as our selectors. But for the expected conditions module, you have to give it the selector type. So that means we give it a tuple that says by.css_selector and the locator. Here's how you can use the by class. Up till now, we've been using something like line 3. Tag underscore dropdown equal select hash tag. That means we want to access a select element in the HTML, and the ID of the element is tag. Then, when we run code like in line number 8, we do self.browser.findElement by CSS selector, and we pass in that string. However, you can do find element instead, only that you have to pass it what type of selector you want to use. So here we're going to do self.browser.findElement, and we pass in by.css selector, and then the string as the second argument. That means that we can then use other types of selectors if we want. So here's how you could do that if you wanted to organize your selectors in this way. Imagine you've got a selector like in line number 4 that says by ID, tag. Now this is how we define a tuple in Python. So just underscore ID is a tuple of 2 values, by.id and tag. And here's how you can use them. You can do something like line 11, self.browser.findElement by ID, and you can pass in the string directly. In that case, you would not need to define just ID as a tuple. You could just define it as the ID. You could do something like line number 12, which is self.browser.findElement, and then you pass by ID and the string. And finally, and this is actually my preferred way of doing things in Selenium, is to do something like line 13. You define your locators as in line 4, and then you do, like in line 13, self.browser.findElement, and you pass in the 2 values of the selector as arguments, and that's why we use the asterisk. This is essentially argument unpacking. So we say asterisk just underscore ID, and that passes by ID and tag as the 2 values, as the 2 arguments to the findElement method. And what that allows you to do is to very easily and very concisely define your selectors while also being explicit in what they are for. So you don't have to assume that they're all CSS selectors. You can just say by CSS selector and then the tag dropdown, or by ID and then the tag. In our project, we've not done this because I felt it added a little bit of complexity, but nonetheless, it is my preferred way when I'm working on a larger project. So other things you can use with the by class, you can do by ID, XPath, link text, so you can actually search for links. You can do partial link text, you can do name, tag name, class name, and CSS selector. So more information on all this is linked in the resources section of the lecture, so feel free to take a look at the official documentation that I've put in there if you want more information on this. Finally, we've got implicit weights. An implicit weight is defined at the very start of your Selenium code. So just after you create your chromedriver or your browser, you can say driver.implicitly weight and then a number. And what this does is whenever you try to find an element and it's not there, the browser will wait up to 10 seconds in this case by checking continuously until the element appears. I do not recommend doing this, although it's much simpler. It's kind of obscure, and then when you're looking at your code, it's not clear that it's going to wait up to 10 seconds every time. And also, it can hide problems. If your code is always waiting 10 seconds for everything, it probably means something's wrong with your application, so usually you want to avoid implicit waits. However, they do exist, they are in the official documentation, you can use them, and you should probably know about them if you want to apply for a Selenium-based job. Thanks for joining me in this video. Let's jump into the code. So I'll see you in the next one.
Can't have regrets because everything happens for a reason. Everything is connected. So if something happens at a point in your life where you're like, God, I should have not done this, I should have not took this opportunity, I should have not, had this person in my life or whatever it is. Later on you realize it happened for a reason, for your growth.
Hi guys and welcome back. In this video we're going to be adding weights to our search. Sometimes when you're interacting with a page that uses JavaScript, things are not going to happen immediately. For example, you may select an author from the dropdown and then it may take a couple of seconds before the tags dropdown is populated. Although the page we're using is very fast, other pages may be much slower and you'll have to wait. The easiest way to wait is to do time.sleep and add like 5 seconds. You need to import time if you're going to do this, so let's do that at the top. Time comes with Python, so you don't have to install anything. And what this does in Python is it just stops everything for 5 seconds. If you run app.py now and you type Bob Marley and music, you'll see that Chrome opens, Bob Marley selected, and then nothing happens for 5 seconds, and eventually music is selected. Again, you may need to wait if your program is too fast for the website. However, sometimes time.sleep is not appropriate. In fact, most of the time, time.sleep is not appropriate because it waits for 5 seconds even if the element is available after 1 second. Fortunately, Selenium comes with a way to wait until something happens. So what you can do is you can wait until the different options of the tag have become available. And that's what we're going to do instead of time.sleep. What we'll do is we will go ahead and import a couple of things that we're going to need. So no longer need time there. So we're going to need these 3 things. From Selenium WebDriver common by import by, we're going to need Selenium WebDriver support expected conditions and Selenium WebDriver support wait, WebDriver wait. Then let's go back down to our search, and here we're going to do a wait until. So we're going to do WebDriver wait, and we're going to pass in the browser and the maximum amount of time we want to wait. And then we're going to do until. This is what's called an implicit wait, but it is a fairly explicit implicit wait. So this type of wait is going to wait until something happens. And what's going to happen is we're going to say expected conditions dot presence of element located. And then in here, we pass in a tuple of by CSS selector and the quotes page locators dot tag dropdown value option. This doesn't exist yet, by the way, but let me just explain what's going on first. We're going to wait up to 10 seconds until the element is in the page. It doesn't have to be visible, it just has to be in the page. And this is the element that we're going to look for. We're going to look for this thing, and we're telling Selenium that that thing is a CSS selector. If this thing was an element's ID, you could do by ID. If that thing was something else, you could do all of these: ID, XPath, link text, partial link text, name, tag name, class name, or CSS selector. So these are all the different options for searching. And up till now, we've only been using find element by CSS selector. So we've not had to use the by class. But the expected conditions module here does need the by and the locator, and you have to say both of them. So then we have to go and create this locator here. And this locator is going to be select tag. So it's basically an element inside this select, and it is an option that has a value. So if the options don't have a value, they won't match this selector, but if any option inside this select has a value, then it will match the selector and we'll be able to find it. So what it's saying is wait until that tag select has an option that has a value, and you wait up to 10 seconds. The reason for it is that if you right click on this tag name here and you look at this one specifically, you'll see that there are multiple options in there, but only the actual tags have an option. The first option in the select doesn't have a value. It's just a bunch of dashes. So when you don't have an author selected, then these selects here don't have options with values. It only has an option without a value. And as soon as you select an author, then you have your different values appearing there. So what we're going to do is we're going to wait for an option with a value to appear, and that's for how long we're going to wait. Notice that if it's instant, then this is going to be instant as well, or almost instant. And if it's not, then this is going to wait up to 10 seconds. The way this works internally is it just checks every now and then to see if it's appeared. Once again, this just works the same way. We type Bob Marley, and then we type music, and you'll see that now it's almost instant because that appears very quickly. But if you run it, and if we like quotes from this author, what you'll see is that it's going to wait up to 10 seconds after launching Chrome, because by selecting this author, this hasn't changed and there are no tags in there, no options that have a value. And after 10 seconds, you'll see an error appeared, an unknown error appeared. Please try again. Hopefully all of this makes sense. The whole waiting is very important when you're using Selenium. You're gonna have to be waiting a lot of the time when you're interacting with JavaScript websites because things can take a while. If the website has to talk to a server, that can take some time. And you just don't want to be faster than the website. And not only that, but sometimes you actually want to be deliberately slow because users can be slower as well. So waiting, very important. I've just scratched the surface here in this video. You've got explicit and implicit waits. Explicit wait is when you actually tell Python how long to wait for. Implicit waits is when you wait until a certain amount of time or up to a certain amount of time. So thanks for joining me in this video. Hope you've learned something. I'll see you on the next one.
Woke up, it's a dream. It's a dream. It's possible. Yes, it's possible. Everything is possible.
Right out of the top floor.